Now, when reading about this game, you might raise an eyebrow similarly to when you learned about Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, because it was developed mostly by a company never yet involved with the series as based off to coin a spin-off in a genre different to that series. Halo Wars is a story that takes place in the series rather than an actual part of the big series, and the biggest takeaway from this first paragraph is that Halo Wars is actually an RTS game instead of a first-person shooter. Crazy, I know. You play as the human characters aboard the spacecraft Spirit of Fire, captained by the prototypical old commander dude and his hotshot army commanders alongside the ship's AI computer representation, the good lady Serena, who actually swept the best hologram character in Halo award, slaughtering Cortana because unlike her, who in the main game comes off as a really robotic personality, Serena here is actually quite hilariously sarcastic when interpreting the commander's orders, and by herself, she's not only a highlight of this game, but one for Halo characters altogether. Overlooking that, through the power of the humans' will to win this war, you must use the crew of the Spirit of Fire to power your way through the Covenant's resistance and win the day for all your mates back home. This game, since it's RTS, obviously takes place entirely from a second-person view, with you controlling your humans to wage war on your behalf, while you sit up in the computer room eating Doritos. The mechanics of this game are spot on for what they were trying to do in introducing the real-time strategy genre to the Halo fanbase, meaning that it really boils down to being baby's first strategy game, which I appreciated personally since it was my first strategy game and a great introduction to the genre, because good RTS games will design an AI that complements the player's commands instead of just adheres to the player's commands or overwrites what the player wants and gets themselves killed because they think they're smarter than the hive mind controlling their every move. If you're here asking for a perfectly functional strategy game, you best be moving along, little doggy, because 1, this game really only has one strategy in building up the biggest, baddest units, since the enemy rarely sends forces strong enough to decimate your entire base in the early game, and supplants that with occasional Banshee platoons easily dealt with by the turrets, and then stomping all over the enemy in horribly outclassed fashion. And 2, the pathfinding in this game is horrible, with foot soldiers tripping over the vehicles when moving them in groups, which gets almost impossible when Mission 9 adds in the elephant as a unit, which is so giant and slow that the entire army got stuck behind it at one point in the game, which had me as confused as watching dogs running into their own reflection, because it's the slowest unit in the game. It was behind everybody before they ran up the hill, and just why? So, it's not the best RTS game, but having the unbalanced superpower in your control during the campaign with the highest HP, the smartest AI, and being able to have them actually run tactics and defend easily means that the campaign can get easy if you're experienced with the genre, but it still works as an introduction. The story is where this game starts to fall apart, because while its actual playtime has this weird combination of slow build to fast-paced action when you're starting to build the big tanks, and then you use the big tanks to crush everything, the story is told in veritable Doom style in betweeny bits with short cutscenes, and then in-game text boxes centering around a team led by the Prophet of Regret, finding a Forerunner artifact that'll tip the scales of the Human Covenant War in their favor, and the conflict comes from this artifact for some bizarre reason only being able to be activated by human hands, since the Forerunners had something against all aliens instead of just the Flood apparently. So it boils down to the enemy finding a weapon of mass destruction, and the heroes need to stop their asses by blowing up a sun, which was inside the planet, because that's how shield worlds work apparently. I'm thinking that the Forerunners' idea of flood killing went through a lot of brainstorming, considering the shield world can't even keep out all of the flood in this game, but maybe that was our fault when we dragged our asses into it against our will, and like I said, the story isn't its strong point, but for having solid strategy gameplay that can serve as a baby's first into this genre, that sets up realistic challenges for simple completion that makes it a game to have fun with instead of taking it seriously from A to B, which I couldn't do anyway, with Serena always poking in her little anecdotes every time I nuked the Covenant. Hope you enjoyed our first foray into the sci-fi shooter series with this one, with our next space jump landing us on Reach, so don't touch that energy sword just yet because I can't find my score page for this video. I'll just add that in later then. Victory for gamers, everyone! Where the f are you? I'm sure I just wrote it down somewhere.